All right, Beth, I appreciate you coming on today and joining us. Do you want to kind of maybe discuss uh, how
Sure.
you got to
I can talk
being the
about it for
activist
hours,
that
but
you are
I'll
today?
it started about 2021 when my daughter was really kind of caught in this trans identity, as well as many of her classmates. And I noticed the parents and the school counselors and the teachers were all very affirming. And like there was only one path they wanted my daughter and me to go, and that was the idea that she could grow up to be a man. And I didn't know where this was coming from. And so I just started doing some research, and I didn't realize that they had been teaching it in the California public schools since she was in sixth grade. And her doctor here at Kaiser Permanente, immediately wanted to medicalize my daughter when she was real young. And I just saw it kind of taking over our government, which in California, it's a super majority Democrat. And so my town is a university town with the University of California, Davis, and probably 85% of people are, registered Democrats or close to that. And so it became this bubble where you couldn't even talk about having a concern or finding things that were questionable. And then later I found out that, our state law allows boys in the girls' locker rooms. It allows teachers to secretly socially transition children at school. All kinds of crazy things. Tampons in the boys' bathrooms now at every school in Davis. So I've just became an activist, and I didn't ever set out to be one, but I realized that I had this knowledge and this personal experience that would allow me to do it. And I had a job at a public university, which I thought would be pretty safe. But in the end, I actually did get laid off recently. So they'll come after you if you speak out. They'll come after your job, your livelihood, your relationships with your friends, and your family. So um, yeah, it's a tough road, but you at least I feel like.
We lost Beth.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure if it's usually my internet's pretty good, but
Well, I was wondering if it was me or not, but it stayed recording,
okay.
so I'm
Sorry about that.
unfortunately guessing it was on your end, but it could be anything. No, you're good. It's not that important. Things happen. Uh, I guess you kind of described why how you got to where you're at now. I believe this being an activist has caused problems with your trans daughter, right? I'll be honest with you, I get
It is.
confused on
It's really confusing.
how all that wording goes, and
It's
it
totally
and it
true.
seems to change so
So,
much. It's
yeah, what
hard
I
to
like
keep
to
track of it.
say when I'm referring to anyone
Yeah,
now is I
and
usually just say a man pretending to be a woman versus saying a trans woman, because, it's, we're not transitioning people, and, or people
right.
can't really transition. And, what you're doing is you're trying to act or dress like you're either the opposite sex or maybe neither. So yeah, I just say my daughter, who at the time was identifying as um, transgender, which was something that wasn't around when I was going through school. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I guess a question that maybe some people out there would wonder is if, like, do you regret what activism has cost you? Would you
If
do it
I
over
could do
a
it in a
different way if you could?
no, it's
How
such a
I
good
mean,
question.
if that's too personal, I can
And
always
it's a
cut that
question
out.
my family members ask me too. People really close to me, like, do you wish do you think if you hadn't become so vocal and such an activist, would you have a better relationship with your daughter? Or, right now we've been estranged for 3 years. And I think we would have in the short term, of course, a much better relationship because she wouldn't see me, pushing so hard on this. And I think she sees it maybe as me going after her friend group, or, people that are really important in her life, people that she cares about. Um, whether it be like teachers she had when she was in high school or junior high school, or but I think in the long run, she's going to realize that what I was doing was not trying to hurt her in any way. I was trying to protect her. At the time she was still a minor. And so I wanted to, I was hoping that we would end all surgeries and the use of hormones before she turned 18. And I'm just hoping that I'm just one of the people that's going to make this whole thing, this whole house of cards, right? It's this make believe system that we have transgender people, and with drugs and surgeries we can change them. That I'm one of the people that's just trying to end it, so we can keep kids and vulnerable people healthy in their bodies. I think it's very different to tell somebody, hey, if we give you top surgery, which is a double mastectomy, that's just a cosmetic surgery. That's not turning you into a man. It's not affirming, this gender. It's just taking off a healthy part of your body that you'll never get back. And you're giving up, X, Y, and Z, versus saying, hey, this top surgery might save your life. This will reduce your chances of suicide, which there's no proof for that. And to tell somebody who's feeling really depressed or, unhappy with their body that a surgery is going to, you know, possibly save their life. I just think well, I know it's medical fraud, or consumer fraud, medical malpractice. And so, yeah, I think the short term, the relationship with my daughter would have been much better. In the long term, I think everyone's going to be like, why didn't more people speak out when you knew something was wrong? So, yeah, it's an awful place to be because you feel like you're hurting the person you love
Right.
the most, your own
Oh,
child. You're hurting them by being an activist. But I looked around and I didn't see anybody in my town willing to become a public person speaking out on this. And even though we knew how many kids, boys and girls, were starting to go down this medical path, you could go to my daughter's theater production or choir production, and you could see girls who'd already, had their breasts removed as a ninth grade girls. So it's like right in front of my face. Yeah.
yeah. Do you feel like obviously you feel like there should be age restrictions to this, right? Like no one under 18. Do you think it should be like we shouldn't even I wouldn't myself have a problem if we don't even discuss like straight sex stuff in school if you want to go that far. I mean, why are we really
Yeah.
pounding this stuff in
Yeah, I
kids' heads,
think
right?
right. Well, I think there were two parts to that, right? One was the well, first the okay, so the age of at what age can you start giving people, cross-sex hormones? When can you start giving a young man estrogen, and when can you start giving a woman testosterone? Or when can you start doing surgeries? So, I did this undercover story. I don't know if you saw it, but it was, I actually, yeah, exactly. I pretended to be non-binary, and
Yeah,
I
I've
just
seen that.
discovered that no matter what I said, the doctors or the surgeons wanted to give me these drugs, and all you had to do was sign. It's called it's a consent form, informed consent. So as long as you sign that dotted line that says that there might be risks, they're going to give you whatever you want. I mean, anything. They were trying to upsell me on other types of, surgeries like body contouring. And, I ended up getting approved for phalloplasty. So I just don't think any of these procedures should ever be offered in a medical setting. We wouldn't offer people the ability to cut off their hand, and we wouldn't give people drugs that we knew that they were going to take away their fertility, and
Right.
we knew they were going to, cause their endocrine system to break down permanently. Like, we wouldn't be giving these drugs to people for any other reason except that we've made up this idea that you can, try to mimic the opposite sex with these treatments. So I just, I would hope that, no government funding. I mean, I would not ever want to be part of an HMO like Kaiser Permanente, where the members are paying for these procedures to be done on other members, under that HMO. I mean, I guess I would see it more like if you go to a piercing or tattoo parlor and you walk in there and you know the people that are piercing your body, they're not medical professionals. They're not doctors who've taken the Hippocratic Oath. They're not telling you that this is going to make your body feel better by us tattooing you or piercing you. But I mean, maybe if people want to do these things to their body, it needs to get out of medicine completely for all ages. It's my feeling because I think there's people that are
I
mature
hear,
at
I hear you.
25. There's some people that don't mature probably to their 35, and then I think really a lot of it is just extreme um, depression and anxiety and loneliness, and you're hoping that these, getting to become a new person, you're basically erasing your old self. It just seems like this will solve my problems. I get to be somebody new. So, yeah.
Right.
And I think your other one was about
I,
yeah,
right.
teaching.
I I think you yeah teaching like what you think like sex yeah teaching like do you think like
Yeah, and
sex like
that's kind of
sex
this.
should be involved
They kind of put
at
it all
all?
together, at least in the public schools that I've seen in blue states, right? Sex ed has also become the gender identity unit. So when they're teaching kids about sexuality, they're also teaching about gender identities. And I think what's confusing too is when they're teaching sex ed now, they start teaching, well, there's all these different ways to have sex with different people or multiple people, or, different ways you can have sex. Um, there's a lot now, at least in California, is starting in fifth grade with, anal sex and, this kind of some information that I don't know if children. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like the
and
fisting
so
packets or whatever.
I think we need to, instead of it, sex ed being brought in at this really young age and having it be a very well, at least parents should know, what kind of information is being given to these kids, and what the question answers are like with the teachers, and what the teachers are allowed to say in private with the students. We
Yeah.
had two teachers here in Davis, young women, who were charged with child rape. And in both cases, it was with a 13-year-old boy. So here in my town and then in the town next door, why are young teachers sleeping or having sex with 13-year-old boys? I mean, it's not even sex, they're raping them. So, um, yeah, I'm just concerned that the way they're introducing sexuality to really young children in the classroom is just not, it's not fair to these kids' innocence. So, I mean, maybe, the birds and the bees can be more about what's your body doing when you're going through puberty. And then if you want to have the discussion about, some of these more mature themes, I don't know, the school nurse with your parents or an adult classroom. I just don't, what I've seen to me, I think our children are being traumatized by it.
Yeah.
And I know people say, "Oh, well, they're looking at pornography on their laptop. What's the big deal?" It's
I
like, well, that's a big deal
I
too,
I agree.
you know. So, what
I
state are
agree.
you in? Okay, what state
I
are
I guess
you're in
when
Iowa?
you were
Okay,
doing
and
that undercover,
is The town you're in,
Iowa.
is it blue or red or
I Iowa. I've recently relocated, but I assume it's more
right?
conservative than the conservative town I'm from because it's a smaller rural town. But to be honest with you, I don't know factually. But Iowa's pretty
Except maybe
Republican
the
based,
university
conservative
towns, right?
based. But that's probably yeah, like Iowa City. I don't know about Ames. I assume Ames is
Yeah.
probably pretty liberal, and I assume Des Moines, the state capital, is probably pretty liberal because it's a big city. Maybe the Quad Cities, which is close to us. It's Davenport, Bettendorf might be highly liberal, but for the most part, it's pretty conservative. And I worked in a
Yeah.
school, and I didn't really see so much of that kind of stuff, like the gender stuff, but it was more like you couldn't walk like three
Yes,
feet without seeing like a
it
suicide
is.
poster, and it's almost
I totally
depressing.
agree.
And
It's on the
you
back
know,
of
in
every
itself,
student
just that
ID
in
card
itself,
now. It's in every classroom when you walk in. And one of the dads, his son, did a secret recording of his. They had a guest speaker come in talking about suicide prevention, and I could not believe the recording, what they were telling these kids about, suicide is so common and, all around you. And, it comes from social media and depression, and we have suicide, and you should talk to somebody at your school. All of these, trusted adults can talk to you about suicide. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? Like, they're making it sound like everyone's at risk, and that no one is going to feel
right?
safe talking to their parents about suicide. And yeah, I just think um they're like creating this kind of panic around kids in this topic, and I think that's the wrong way to go about it. Yeah.
Do you, do you
Yeah,
think it's kind of similar to like the Dare campaign in like the late '80s, early '90s? Because I never really had anyone really offer me free drugs like
that's
they
great.
said
I
I would.
haven't Someone's brought that up before, but never talking with me directly.
It's,
But yeah, it's probably like that. I mean, I was in the late '80s, so I remember that this is your brain on drugs, and the egg, and this is feeling of like panic about how dangerous drugs are, which
yeah,
makes you want drugs because you're like, it's the world is coming to an end. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like they push what they want.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
right,
crazy. It's almost
right.
like they push what they
Yeah,
want.
or at least to get you feeling like I have to align with these people, right? And then we go the other, the full swing the other direction, and now it's like, no, drugs
Yeah,
are no big deal. Let's legalize everything. Let's get, free, I don't know, fentanyl or heroin or whatever it is on the street, and needles. And it's like, okay, well, that's not really working either. So
right. Hey, when you were doing that investigation, did they push like a
you
lot
know
of
that di-
depression meds?
that didn't really come up, and I think they were always surprised when they were talking to me about, it's one of the questions they always ask you, what medications are you on? And I would say I'm actually not on anything. I took some SSRIs going through a divorce 20 years ago, but I don't take any medication at all. But I do think that's a huge, huge part of this equation, where you get kids on these antidepressants that take away their libido and their sexual interest, right? Like Lexapro, you know, and then you don't feel like in your body because you're not having these normal sexual, attraction towards whatever boys or girls. And so then you think, well, I must be trans. So, and nobody looks at that, right? No, and nobody's wondering, wait, we have all these girls, I assume boys too, on these like heavy, heavy antidepressants or medication for maybe ADHD or anxiety. I think there's something wrong with just pushing these drugs on kids, and they're on them for years. Yeah,
Do you, uh,
that's good.
do you, uh, shoot? Do you like the bikini thing?
No, it was the school board, and it was I hadn't really planned it out. I just was getting ready to go to the school board because I go almost every 2 weeks, and I just thought, they don't really listen to me. It doesn't matter what I do. I'm gonna try something different. And so I was originally gonna just have on bra and underwear, and put on my son's PE uniform because they have to dress out in Davis. They have to change every day for PE class in junior high school, which is nice to have PE. But they make the kids undress and change. I decided at the last minute, oh, I better put on my bathing suit instead. But I didn't expect them to shut down the meeting. And I mean, that's what made the scene go so viral, is that they said, okay, we're going into recess. You can't do this. I was like, but this is what you have the girls doing at the high school
Yeah,
here in Davis. You have them undressing in front of, you know, trans identified boys. And of course, it is uncomfortable. So they helped me make my point.
yeah. That kind of made a name for you.
Yeah.
That I mean,
Yeah. The one that was really big was when I confronted drag queens at the hotel in
heck
Hawaii.
yeah,
And that's the one where I basically got put on investigatory leave for 8 months by the university because they put this big statement together. I think the first time the university's ever issued a statement condemning someone's behavior, and it was on vacation. And all I said is I don't want drag queens in front of kids, and also my concerns around medicalizing, boys dressing up like girls, or
yeah,
in this case they were these drag queens. But that one really I had friends say, why are you so confrontational? That was wrong what you did. They're just drag queens. It's not a big deal. And I realized that, some people are not going to like the way I speak out, but there are lots of people who kind of agreed with me, including people in Hawaii. They're like, we have values on this island, Native Hawaiians, where we don't want this kind of sexual, culture coming into our community. And so I got a lot of support. But yeah, the governor of Hawaii said I was not welcome back. But I am going back in June, so maybe I'll stop by the Capitol.
shoot, I missed that part.
Yeah.
Do you think right on? You've been receiving like death threats recently, right?
Yeah, that one went viral a few weeks ago. Yeah, and I think I'm doing an interview on Thursday with Newsmax on it. Um, yeah. So, oh no, no, actually, no, I'm doing an interview on another video I did
Right on.
last week that went viral. Not that one, um, but I did. Yeah. So that was also one that just surprise. It's always surprising, like what goes viral, and it's usually something where it's the reaction, right? So in this case, it was a professor. Actually, she's not a professor. She is a
Shoot.
scientist at UC San Francisco. So part of the University of California system. Now,
Lost her again.
I just happened to run into her at the um, Democratic Party the other convention, right? Convention, and I was in a space where you can, exercise your free speech, and I had to sign up about more mastectomies for minors. Yeah, sorry. Well, we went a lot longer at that time, but sorry if it's my side with the Wi-Fi.
Welcome back,
Yeah, yeah.
baby.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was yeah, another good one. Yeah, that one. So I think what made it interesting, I look back at it, I just asked her this series of questions, which people are often tell me, you should look at the way Billboard Chris does it, where you instead of just telling them how you feel, let them talk more. And I think that was helpful to kind of think about it more that way, that I don't have to tell her, hey, this is what I think, But, tell me, I think my questions were like, um, how does a child know if they're transgender? Did you ever feel uncomfortable in your body when you were going through puberty? Do you have a transgender child? Where did your child learn about being transgender? Was it in school?
Oh, shoot.
Let's see. It's like delayed video. Okay.
Yeah, it freezes up there for some reason at the start. I've
Well,
noticed.
I'm sorry about all this tech stuff going on, but yeah. So I think that what made that video interesting was that she actually was breaking the law by saying that she was going to hunt me down and, like, how did she say it? I'm gonna fucking hunt you down and kill you, I think is how she said it. And so, and then I happened to have my phone recording it, and I put it right next to
Yeah.
her mouth as she was talking into my ear. So I don't know how she thought that the phone wouldn't pick that up, but maybe she didn't. And then there just happened to be two or three police officers right behind me. So immediately I turned around, almost like 2 minutes later after I walked out with her, and I just handed it to the police officer. And then he used his phone to video record my phone. And so there was no way that it was doctored or, that I had altered the video in any way. And I did hear from an investigator last week that they are going to, because I want them to press charges, they are going to, contact her, and we'll see where it goes. Yeah, but there was no
Yeah,
statement
right on.
issued by the university
Um,
condemning her
do you
behavior,
do
right?
most?
Which was interesting because the video went just as viral as the drag queen video of me, talking to drag queens. And I guess you're not allowed to do that, but you are allowed to threaten someone's life, according to the University of California. So I'm actually going to write a letter to the regents and the president of California asking, was there any discussion on how this was handled? And they probably won't give me any information, but I'm going to at least submit a public records request. It's not hatred. You guys, it's not hatred to tell a child that they can grow up to be healthy and whole. How much money do you think a surgeon makes off of giving a girl top surgery? Kaiser Permanente charges only $100 copay, and the surgeon makes $25,000. I was approved for a phalloplasty in 2 appointments over Zoom. My doctor told me I could have a fake penis that would allow me to either pee standing up or to have penetrative sex, but not both. Do you think your transgender child might one day have top surgery and a phalloplasty? Is that something you would allow them to have? They make a phalloplasty out of the skin tissue on your thigh or your forearm. It's like a skin sausage. It's a fake penis. $130,000. I'm gonna hunt you down and fucking kill you. Wait, you can't say that. You can't tell somebody you're gonna kill them. You can't say that to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel at any? I mean, you're not going to let threats stop
That
what
was
you're doing,
another
right?
big decision in my life. When I first started getting a lot of these death threats, and my car tires have been slashed twice now. I think by like Antifa type groups here in Northern
Jeez.
California. But they do those types of actions because they want to silence people. So I've just taken extra precautions, and I don't let people know where I'm going to be anymore in advance. I usually will just show up somewhere. And I almost always try to make myself like I did at that convention, the Democratic Party convention. I try to put myself right next to police officers. So, I'm a little safer that way. But yeah, I mean, there's it's not easy to speak out on this topic if you're in a blue state, or blue city in a, even a red state. They're going to come after you, and it's just been nice to connect with so many other women across the US who are in the same position as me. They've lost their liberal friends, they've had falling outs with their best friends or, family members. They've had their job, promotions, things at their work. Um, what's what I'm looking for? They've it's negatively impacted their jobs. In their personal lives, and then also these threats that we all get. So, J.K. Rowling is just a great example, in the UK, and Kelly J. Keane. The two of them, um, they they've just done a lot to speak out on this, and at great cost. And J.K. Rowling, she's more liberal woman, so for her to speak out has just been amazing. So we need more of those kind of celebrities here in the US. We don't quite have someone of that status, but we do have a lot of great, um, professional athletes, and more and more people speaking out. Actually, there's that woman who's she's a black musician. I can't think of her name right now. Uh, Rihanna, maybe. Very famous, but she's been speaking out in support of President Trump, and his views on this issue. Like, yeah, sorry, that's it. I'm
Maybe
just not
Nicki
up
Minaj.
on famous music people, but yeah, she's
Right
she's
on.
incredible, right? I mean,
No, you're
what
good.
an
Uh,
awesome woman to be doing that. Yeah, thank you, Nicki Minaj. Yeah.
hang on. I don't think I grasped this before right now. Are you
Yes, I
now a
am.
Trump
Sorry.
supporter
Yeah.
after being a lifelong
Yeah. So
Democrat?
I voted for.
Well, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
No, I think it's, well, at least on my Facebook profile, there's this. I'm holding a sign that says, "Why are so many girls having mastectomies?" And right behind me, it says Trump Vance 2024. So yeah, I actually did this great video yeah, it went
Probably
really
go to
viral.
heck.
I
I didn't
showed up to
realize
an
that.
anti-ICE protest here in the town next door with a Trump Vance sign, saying "Make women's sports female again." And these kids started throwing
Jeez.
bottles and cans at me, and if it
Right
wasn't
on.
for these three police officers, I probably would have been like, I don't know, physically hurt pretty bad. But I just wanted to see these kids react.
Yeah.
They couldn't handle seeing a woman hold a sign supporting Trump. And why are these kids out of school doing this, these crazy student protest walkouts, um, when they don't even really know what the laws are around free speech? And there's no way to supervise, hundreds of kids walking out of class at the same time. And it was, this California Teachers Association and the school administrators, they're all behind this. So it's not, this organic student kind of protest.
Right.
But yeah, I think it was COVID and the gender stuff that kind of woke me up to how bad the Democrats have been, in pushing just terrible policies around all kinds of topics, but especially, the gender stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Do the group you do the most work the group you do the most work with is Moms for Liberty, correct? And if that is correct, do
sure.
you want to
So,
discuss them at all?
a lot of my activism, I say I'm doing it as an individual because, Moms for Liberty is the most amazing group of, not just moms, but also dads, and just people. You don't have to be a parent, um, and you don't have to be a woman, but people that want to bring back parental rights, and then also just keep our kids safe in our public schools. And but I think, when I hold meetings around topics where I'm holding public forums and having guest speakers, I often use my Moms for Liberty I'm the chair for our county here. I'm in that role, but when I'm doing my activism, that's more as an individual. So, but Moms for Liberty, yeah, it's a great organization. It's across the U.S. I
Gotcha.
think every state now or close to it. And then, like here in California, I think we have 14 counties where we have a chapter chair and then a membership, and it's up to each county, what issues you want to really focus on, as long as they have to do with parental rights and protecting our kids from kind of the government pushing certain things that are taking away the rights of parents and not safe for our kids. So it could be the public libraries or uh, something like what's happening at your county government around health issues, but mostly it's the schools is where Moms for Liberty is focused. And it's been great. I mean, I've learned a lot
Right on.
about free speech and our Constitution. We had a summit in Washington, D.C. in August of 2024, and President Trump, he came and spoke to all of us, in a smaller group. So it was just really nice to see him in person. Very personable when you're in a smaller group with him.
Right on.
Yeah, and he cares a lot for his
Yeah.
own children and his grandkids, but you
Um,
can hear when he talks about our troops and other young people, that he really does want what's best for people in our country.
yeah, I agree with that. I'll be honest with you. I like him a lot. I voted for him, but there's some
Right.
things, but no one's perfect, right? So there's some things I'm disappointed about, but
Yeah,
overall,
yeah, I think.
still like the guy a lot. This will be a two.
Oh,
I
no,
appreciate.
I disagree with you.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's some things that, yeah, I don't really necessarily agree with right now, but maybe I don't know everything, or maybe, like you said, no one's perfect, and there's not going to be any one leader that's going to do everything right. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I appreciate you giving me the time today, but I have like one last question, but it's kind
Yeah.
of a two-part question, if you don't mind. I know we kind of ran over with the technical difficulties, but if you had like a general message that you wanted to give to like parents who may be going through this situation, and also maybe a child who is starting to question their gender identity, what would those messages be?
Um, let's see. I think for the first one, for the parent, I would um, I would say to really trust your gut instinct. What's your first feeling when you hear something? Um, and I wish I had done more research about other times in history where we've had medical scandals. I wish I had done more to understand, okay, why did lobotomies get pushed? Why did, I think it was 40,000 women, it was mostly women who were anxious and depressed who were having these lobotomies done. What was behind that? Because there was no science to it. There was no evidence, and it took decades to finally end this, this horrific procedure. I think it was just an ice axe to someone's brain. Um, but there's also been other medical scandals, like my mom being told to formula feed her babies instead of breastfeed them because it's formula is healthier, or cigarette smoking so good for you. Like I wish I had maybe not focused so much on the gender stuff, especially when I'm talking to my daughter. I wish I had focused on just pointing out, hey, let's watch the show Dope Sick. What happened with the opioid crisis and the Purdue family? Like, how did we get this use of painkillers? I mean, I don't know a lot about that, but like, what are other examples of times in the past where um, medicine was being used to actually harm people for profit. And then and the other thing too is maybe bringing up, how do cults work? Like, how do we get people who, break away from their family or their friends and join this whole other group of people and think it's okay to isolate and only have people that all have the same set of values? And um, that would be probably a better way to talk to your child about the idea of, like, you know, like, everyone has to think the same way, and we're going to have the same, special language, and we're going to have these special symbols and special flags, and we're going to do these special rituals. Um, that maybe that's a better way to reach your child. And I think the biggest thing too for parents is stay as close as you possibly can to your child. And I think I did that pretty well with my daughter for about 4 years, where I did compromise with, like, the name, but I didn't, I just avoided using pronouns for years, and I did use the name that she wanted me to use, and I just tried to do everything I could to spend time with her and do activities with her, and not worry that, if she wanted to do something to because boys did it more, that's okay, because I grew up with three older brothers. Everything I did was what the boys did. I was the one girl who played kickball the whole recess, or I mowed the lawn for my dad every weekend. And I think that would be the thing I would tell kids, is that, that, well, for one thing, when you're going through your teen years and your 20s, there's just a lot of exploration, and that, um, young people, teens have always tried out different things. And so, you don't want to set yourself up in any, like, rigid state. Like, keep, exploring who you are. And yeah, and I just think, if I could let these kids know that if you hear someone speaking out about, boys and girls sports, or, why are there boys in the girls locker room, or why are we allowing these drugs or surgeries? These people speaking out on this are not doing it because they're mean people. They're not transphobic. They're not bigoted. Um, they're uh, people that also see that there's some risk and harm that's being done to people. And so I always try to say, I feel bad for the girls who are, have boys in their sports, but I feel equally bad for that boy. Whoever told him, and it's our California Sports Federation, and it's his coaches at his high school. They're the ones that are promoting, or grooming, a young boy to take away opportunities from girls. And so I have just compassion for all these kids that have been, led down a path that, to me, um, it's not, it's just not reality, right? A boy can't become a girl. A boy can't grow up to be a woman, and a girl can't grow up to be a man. And there's just no, you can be as masculine as you want to be, short hair and sports or whatever, your gun collection, you're still going to be a woman. There's just no wrong way to be a woman, or to be a man. Yeah.
I will say that's the one thing I found interesting in talking to Aaron Kimberly and that Layla Jane, is that they both mentioned that they never felt like they could fit in
Yeah.
with the men, even no matter how much they tried. They
Yeah.
always felt like they'd be a little
And
different.
right, she
I
lives
think you're
close by,
familiar
so I
with
get to
Layla,
see her
right?
quite a bit. We go to a lot of the same events, and she's very bright.
Right on.
And I think sometimes if you're very intellectual and very, she's well read and just really sharp, sometimes you just don't fit in with the other kids, boys or girls. She's just a very smart kid. Or she's a young
Yeah.
woman now,
Right. Yeah.
21, but I can imagine when she was, in
Right.
11, I think
Yeah.
she was 13 when they double mastectomy on her, right? And so as a 12-year-old girl, she probably just didn't fit in.
Yeah.
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 That's neat that you spoke with her. She's great.
Yeah. She went. I mean, yeah, she was a very nice
Yeah.
lady. Cool person. Sounds like you go through an incredible amount of pain to transition, I assume, right? And it sounds horrible.
Hmm.
And then to go back sounds even worse. So to think of the imagine of all the pain that she's actually physically endured is
Yeah.
semi
If people
amazing, to
ask me
say the least.
sometimes, wait, how can yeah.
I wouldn't have
And when
wanted
they ask me,
to take
how
that
can I
journey.
support you? I always say, I don't need the support. I mean, it's sweet to offer, but if you can help in any way, it's really someone like Layla Jane or, you know, there's so many other detransitioners that they need help with medical expenses and they need help with attorneys and, um, just getting over this extreme trauma and people have really harmed them, the medical establishment and our elected officials who pushed it. So
Well, Beth, I appreciate you coming on. If people want to find out more about
yeah,
you,
and
is
also I'm
X
on
the best
Facebook and
place
I
to
just put
find you?
everything on there as public. So if people are there, you can find me under Beth Young Born, and I'm happy to be friends with anyone. So on both sides of this. So yeah,
Right on.
yeah,
Right on.
yeah. Yes, it's
Well, I
great
appreciate you
questions.
coming on,
Thank you.
Beth.
Right.